Today I have a video on two different pads from Rudimental Drummer. I had several requests that, hey, could you do a video on Rudimental Drummers? So Rudimental Drummer is a company out of the Netherlands, and I wrote to them and said, hey, I would love to check out a couple of your pads and do some videos. I've had some requests on them. And they decided that they wanted to make a pad that felt like a real drum, because one of the things that can happen is that when you're playing on pads like this, you can get pad hands. And I realized that because I hadn't played on a real marching snare in probably, 20 years. And I recently bought a Yamaha marching snare that I love. And I realized that from playing on pads like this, going to a real drum, it is an entirely different feel. And one of the things they set out to do was to make a pad that is as much like a real drum as they could, so that you would not have pad hands. And it was clear from talking to them that they are passionate about the pads. It's clear that they are a company by drummers for drummers. They still actively drum. January 2019, they first came out with their drumcore pad, which I have here, and their rope drum pad. And if you check out their website, they have several different styles of pads. The rope drum pad has a real wooden rim, a softer feel, just like it would if you're playing on a rope drum. And then they came out with the drumcore pad, which has a much higher tension marching snare, they say, type feel. December 2019, they came out with the marching band pad, the chop pad, and their smaller, quieter travel pad. And they've now sold those pads, hundreds of them. Because they're a small company, just 2 people, they don't have a big backlog of products. They have limited storage, limited funds, so they are not a order now, ship now pad. There is a production time for their pads of 4 to 5 weeks, but I can say that the quality that you're gonna get from their pads is worth the wait. Now, in the process of talking to them, I said, hey, you know, your pads, especially the drumcore pad, it's pretty expensive. What do you think sets your pads apart from the rest of the pads on the market? And they said, well, it's a combination of several things. The wooden base with the real rim, with the gum rubber playing surface, with the real head, with some metal stuff on the bottom, and it allows you to tension this down to a high tension so that you get as close as possible to a real marching snare type feel, and then different feels of some of the other feels. But overall, to summarize that, I would say it's the quality of the product they put out, and the feel of it is what they think sets their pads apart from some of the other ones on the market. They sent me 2 pads, the drumcore pad and the chop pad. They're both similar yet different pads, so I'll talk about them individually. First, let's talk about the drumcore pad. The drumcore pad is expensive. It is 170 euros or $192. Not a cheap pad, by far the most expensive pad that I've used. They label this pad as having a high tension feel, and this pad is also not light. So this is maybe not something that you're going to throw in your backpack casually and take off to school. You could, but it is almost 10 pounds. This pad weighs 9 pounds, 14 ounces. My first impression when I took these pads out of the box was, wow, this pad is incredible quality, such that almost it could be a piece of furniture. They are made so well. Really nice pads. And this weight, it's heavy, but that weight does, I would say, have some advantages that I'll talk about in a little bit. This pad is 14 inches and it comes with 2 head choices, either an Evans hybrid gray head, like this one, or an Evans hybrid black. They say that the hybrid black has a little bit softer feel and a lower pitch, and that the hybrid gray has a little bit higher tension type feel. They both have the same tension, but they say that the feel on the gray and the pitch are both a little bit higher. So because I wanted to get as close as I could to a marching snare, I went with the hybrid gray. Looking at the rest of the construction on this, it is a plywood base, a thick, heavy plywood base. And that heavy plywood base helps keep it down, helps weight it so that when you're playing on it, it's not bouncing around. There are some of the other pads that when you hit them, they can tend to bounce around a little bit, come off the table or whatever playing surface you have on it. Because this pad weighs 10 pounds, this pad is not going anywhere. On the bottom of it, there are 3 rubber feet so that when you put it down, it's not going to slide around. There are also 3 holes such that if you had a stand that was of a sufficient height, you put the feet of the stand in these holes, and then you can play on this as if it was a normal, say, marching snare at normal marching snare height. You can also see these metal brackets on the bottom, and what those do is they give the pad strength so that when you are tensioning this rim and lugs down to it, the pad, the wooden base, is not going to collapse. And then moving up on top of that, there's a rim. They have 3 rim choices on their website, and they have good information of this. You can check out it on their website. The rim they have on the marching snare is their top rim. This pad is the most expensive, and to account for that price, they use a higher quality plywood. They use the highest quality rim. The die-cast rim is the stiffest and the strongest. Underneath that, there's a gum rubber playing surface, and then the head, which I mentioned. And these are regular lugs, such that you can tension them down with a regular drum key. They say that when the pad ships, it comes not that tensioned, so when you get it, you may want to tighten it some to get a little bit more tighter feel to it. Now this pad is 14 inches, which is the size of a regular marching snare, a regular drum. And the nice thing about that is that when you're playing on it, you get the regular feel, the muscle memory of going to the edge, coming back to the center, doing shots. And also because of the style of the head with the rim, you can do rim clicks this way, and it's the same size. Now let me talk about the chop pad, which comes in either 10 inches or 12 inches, which is what I have. This pad is cheaper, 73 euros or $82. And because of that lower price point, the materials are, I won't say cheaper, but I mean, they're cheaper physically. They're of a slightly less high quality. Again, I don't mean to say less high quality in a way that they're junk, but the drumcore pad has the best that they could offer in the materials. And the rims on this are a little bit less stiff because they don't need to be as stiff. The plywood base is a little bit lower quality plywood, but again, still very high quality. Plywood base here, there's no feet on this like on the drumcore pad, still the 3 feet. There's no metal pieces here because again, this has a Mylar Evans black chrome head. It's not going to be tensioned down as high as the drumcore pad. And because of that, you can use one of their other 2 type of rim options, either the triple flange or the S-style stick saver, which is what I have here. And the advantage of that is that when you're doing shots on your pad, it's not going to chew up your sticks as much as the die-cast rim would be. The sound difference on this, the drumcore pad has a higher pitched, louder sound, and the sound on this is a lower pitched, more thuddy, quieter, so that if you are at home with family, this pad is going to be less annoying to the other people in your house or your apartment or wherever you are. And because this pad weighs 5 pounds, 6 ounces, again, a lot lighter than the 9 pound, 14 ounce drumcore pad, you could take this one and stick it in your backpack and take it to school or wherever else. Another option that you can get with these pads is the Evans Sound Off. And this takes the regular pad and it goes on top of it. It's this kind of spongy type thing. Goes on top of the pad and it makes the pad a bunch quieter. Goes from to, it's going to take some of the bounce away. So you're gonna have to work a lot harder. But you can get those as an addition to the order as well. All right, let's play in these things and see what they sound like. I have the drumcore pad here, the chops pad here, and a marching snare here. So there's a sound comparison between the two pads. If I had to put that comparison into words to describe it, I would say the drumcore pad has a higher, tighter, louder, more articulate sound, and the chops pad has a lower, quieter, thuddier, drier sound. Just with my lavalier mic, one quick comparison, different sound source for you. And the chops pad. Now, if I had to describe the feel between the two of them, as you would expect, the drumcore pad has a much more rebounder, tighter feel, and the chops pad has a softer feel. Hence the name of the chops pad. Because it has a softer feel, you have to work harder to play, and you're going to develop your chops and your muscles a little bit more so that when you go to either the drumcore pad or a real drum, you're going to have maybe a little bit more muscles to do it. Now, do these pads feel like a real drum? No, they don't, but they can't, because the physics of a drum is different than the physics of a pad, so you can't totally reproduce a pad or a drum in a pad. Now, they come, I'd say, pretty close. They have the exact same heads here. The drumcore pad and my snare both have the Evans Gray hybrid heads. And if I had to describe the way these felt, you all know how a drum feels, but if I had to describe how these felt, if you take a marching snare head, you tighten it down over a firm playing surface, that's how it feels. That's how I pictured it feeling before I got it, and when I got it and I got to play on it, sure enough, that's how they feel. The chops pad feels like you took a Mylar head and put it over a softer playing surface. Now, how do these pads feel compared to the other pads that I have? Well, I would say the Ram pad actually does have a little bit more rebound than this. It's a different kind of rebound, but I would say it is a little bit of a tighter feel. However, this pad, you get the full size. The rim is the correct height. On the other ones, I realized when I went back to them from playing on a drum and this, my shot muscle memory is different because they're lower on that, whereas this is more accurate. You get a smooth head all the way out to the edge, so you get the muscle memory and you can play all the way out to the edge. You can cross stick because again, it's the same size. Now these pads compared to like Zymox and Offworld, I would say those pads feel like you took a wooden board, put a little bit of gum rubber over it, and then a laminate. So those pads feel a lot more like playing on a board. These pads, I will say, do feel closer to playing on a drum. Those pads are going to give you more pad hands, and this, while it is not a drum, I will say is closer and is going to give you a closer rebound feel. And by feel, I don't mean the amount of rebound, but the way the rebound feels in the pad, I will say, is closer to the rebound of the drum than the other ones that feel closer to playing on a wooden board. Those are not bad feeling. They're all great pads. As I said, they're all great pads. They just all feel different. Now, as much as I say that the feel of the rebound on this pad feels like a real drum does have more rebound. Maybe a good analogy is that this feels like playing on an old school marching snare with a Mylar, a plastic head, and the real drum feels like playing on, well, and obviously a modern marching snare with something like this Evans hybrid head. Now, you are going to spend the money on them, especially this drumcore pad, $192, but as I said before, you get a beautiful pad. You get a real rim, you get a real head. This die-cast rim is going to be a little rougher on your sticks. My sticks have been getting beaten up by it. But if you get, say, the chops pad, it's got that stick saver rim and it's going to be kinder on them. I recommend checking them out. You're going to wait, you're going to pay, but you're going to get a beautiful pad from Rudimental Drummer. So give it a try. Check them out. Check out their website. Links below.